If you've ever had a quiet moment, maybe late at night or early in the morning, where a question slipped into your mind that you've never said out loud, "Am I enough?" Then stay with me, because what I'm about to share may finally replace years of silent doubt with something far more powerful: clarity. Hello, gentlemen. I'm Dr. Elena Hart, and over the years working with men, especially those over 50, I've seen a pattern that rarely gets discussed openly, but lives quietly in the background of so many lives: anxiety about size, comparison, and whether you measure up to expectations that were never clearly defined in the first place. And here's the truth: most men are never told. The majority of what you believe about this topic didn't come from science. It came from noise, locker room talk, exaggerated media, awkward teenage comparisons, and unrealistic imagery that shaped your perception long before you had the maturity to question it. Think back for a moment. When did you first start worrying about this? It likely wasn't during a meaningful conversation with a partner or a doctor. It was probably during adolescence, when confidence is fragile and impressions stick deeply. And what's fascinating is that those early ideas often remain unchallenged for decades, quietly influencing how you see yourself, how you show up in relationships, and how you experience intimacy. Now let's ground this in reality, not assumption. Large clinical studies that actually measure men, not guesses, not self-reports, but controlled measurements, consistently show that the average erect size falls within a relatively narrow range, and most men sit comfortably within that range. Not at the bottom, not at the top, but right where biology intended. Yet the problem is, most men aren't comparing themselves to averages. They're comparing themselves to extremes. And when you compare normal to extreme, you will always feel like you fall short, even when you don't. Now, let's shift perspective to something even more important: what women actually report when asked honestly and privately. When women are surveyed without pressure, without partners present, and without social expectations influencing their answers, the overwhelming majority describe preferences that align closely with average, not extremes. In fact, what consistently emerges is that size ranks far lower than men assume. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever believed that a woman might be silently disappointed but just not saying it? That belief alone can create a level of internal pressure that affects your performance, your confidence, and your ability to be present far more than any physical trait ever could. Because here's what science repeatedly shows: emotional connection, attentiveness, and comfort consistently outrank physical dimensions when it comes to satisfaction. Now, let's talk about anatomy in a calm and honest way. The areas responsible for the majority of pleasurable sensation are located much closer to the entrance, not deep inside, which means extreme length is not biologically necessary for pleasure. What matters far more is arousal, blood flow, relaxation, and responsiveness. And here's where it gets even more important. When a woman feels emotionally safe, understood, and relaxed, her body responds differently. Her sensitivity increases, her comfort improves, and her experience becomes more fulfilling. Now think about what happens when you're anxious. When your mind is focused on measuring up, comparing, or performing, your body enters a stress response. Stress hormones increase, blood flow becomes less efficient, and your ability to stay present decreases. In simple terms, worrying about size can actually reduce the very qualities that matter most. Let me ask you something honestly. During intimacy, are you truly present with your partner, or are you monitoring yourself, evaluating, comparing, and questioning? That inner dialogue matters more than you think. And for men over 50, this becomes even more relevant. As the body changes with age, erections may take longer, sensitivity may shift, and recovery time may increase. These are not signs of failure. They are natural adaptations. Yet many men interpret them incorrectly, linking them back to old insecurities that were never based on reality in the first place. But here's what's interesting. Many couples actually report greater satisfaction with age, not because the body becomes younger, but because pressure decreases and communication improves. Comfort replaces performance. Understanding replaces assumption. Now let's address something that rarely gets discussed: discomfort. The idea that bigger is always better simply doesn't hold true. For many women, excessive size can actually create discomfort, especially as natural changes occur over time, and discomfort prevents enjoyment, which means the very thing some men believe is an advantage can, in reality, become a barrier. What consistently ranks higher in satisfaction studies is not size, but technique, rhythm, attentiveness, and the ability to respond to a partner's cues. Let me ask you, how often do you truly pay attention, not just physically, but emotionally, during intimacy? Because awareness builds confidence, and confidence is what creates attraction. Now let's talk about performance anxiety, because this is where many men get stuck. It often begins with a belief, I have to perform a certain way. That belief creates pressure. Pressure triggers stress. Stress interferes with response. And the cycle repeats. Breaking that cycle doesn't start with changing your body. It starts with changing your understanding. Another important piece is body image. Men experience body image concerns just as deeply as women, but they rarely talk about it. Many men who are completely within normal ranges still believe they are inadequate, not because of reality, but because of comparison. And if you find yourself frequently checking, measuring, or comparing, that's not a physical issue. It's a mental loop that can be broken. Now let's talk about masculinity, because this is where everything ties together. Masculinity is not defined by inches. It's defined by presence, consistency, emotional strength, and the way you make your partner feel. Women consistently report that feeling desired, respected, and emotionally connected has a far greater impact on satisfaction than any physical measurement. Let me ask you something deeper. When you think about intimacy, do you see it as something you need to prove or something you share? Because when you shift from proving to sharing, everything changes. Pressure drops, connection increases, and confidence becomes natural instead of forced. Now let's move into what actually helps. First, your cardiovascular health matters. Blood flow drives performance, not size. Regular movement, even simple walking, can improve function significantly. Second, sleep. Poor sleep disrupts hormones and increases stress. Better sleep supports better response. Third, stress management. A calmer mind supports a more responsive body. Fourth, communication. Many couples never openly discuss what feels good, and that silence creates unnecessary confusion. Fifth, stop comparing yourself to unrealistic imagery. What you see in media is not a reflection of real life. It's curated, edited, and often misleading. Now let's speak directly to men over 50. Aging does not reduce your value. It reshapes it. Many women value emotional intelligence, stability, and presence more as they age. These are qualities that deepen, not fade. Let me ask you something powerful. If no one had ever told you that size mattered, how would you feel about yourself today? That question alone reveals how much of this concern is learned, not lived. And here's the truth. Real relationships are not built on measurements. They are built on trust, familiarity, shared experiences, and emotional safety. Inches do not create connection. People do. If you're single, confidence matters more than anatomy. If you're in a relationship, communication matters more than assumption. If you're experiencing changes in function, those are often linked to health factors like circulation or hormones, not size. And addressing those factors has a far greater impact than worrying about something that was never the issue to begin with. So let's come back to the core question. How much does size actually matter? Science tells us there is no single number that defines satisfaction. Preferences vary, but they consistently center around average, and more importantly, they are overshadowed by emotional and relational factors. So let me ask you one final question. Has worrying about this ever improved your relationship or your experience, or has it only created tension in your own mind? Because self-acceptance creates openness, and openness creates connection. And as you move forward, I want you to carry this with you. You are far more normal than you think. Your body is not failing you, and confidence does not come from comparison. It comes from understanding. If this shifted your perspective even slightly, take a moment right now, hit that like button, and share in the comments what belief you're ready to let go of today. And if you want more honest, evidence-based conversations like this, subscribe and stay with me. I'm Dr. Elena Hart, and you deserve to feel confident, informed, and at ease in your own body at every stage of life.